What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Frank Macalusa from Garageaholic, giving you another episode of the E30 N54. Today we're going to be taking the GS653BZ and we're going to be mating it to the N54 B30 rather. We're going to be doing some engine bay work today. We're going to be doing welding up the subframe. We're going to be shaving the engine bay. We're going to be doing some electronics bay welding as well. So we're going to be making a little location for the DME and the relays and all that other stuff. Where the battery ones sat. So, hey, guys, stay tuned. You don't want to miss it. This is going to be a good one. So I got myself a new flywheel pressure plate combo. And this is from a 335 IS. This is actually a upgraded version of the stock. I was gonna go 6 puck, and then I was gonna go I felt like this was probably the best, most economical way to handle high torque. Now this actually can handle up to 450 to 500 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing is definitely going to be able to handle all we can slam at it. And I got some updates on the E36 M3 where it is being able to handle it easily 400 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing is definitely going to work, no problem. I got my flywheel here. I've got my new thrust bearing. And now, remember when I described the thrust bearings earlier? I have this actually on my swap guide. There are two different settings for the thrust bearing. That setting there, which is a pretty deep setting, and then you have this setting here. This is a more, this is actually a, they call this the, I don't know if it's European feel. I think that this one is actually a European feel where the clutch engagement is a lot higher off the floor. This one here, the clutch engagement is a lot closer to the floor. Depending on how you install it, whether it's like this, or like this, turning it 90 degrees, will affect how your clutch feels. So please keep that in mind as you go forward and do this. Like I said, the E30 N54 Integrator's Guide will have this information in it if you're ever interested. Okay, so I got all 6 of these guys torqued up, and now I'm a little bit nervous because you can see, if I stick this in here, you probably can't see it, but that clutch disc is just floating in there, right? But it moves. That's the problem, is it moves. So when I unscrew this, which is basically, this guy is a spring loader plate, and basically when you install the clutch for a new clutch disc for the first time, and you unscrew this, it preloads these springs, which then continually keeps load on the actual pressure disc, the clutch disc, so that you have the same clutch feel with the same pressure as the clutch continues to wear out. When I unscrew this, it's going to take the tension off of these fingers and put pressure on the clutch disc to the flywheel and the pressure plate. So it's going to basically set the clutch disc in its position. And if it does not line up, then I won't be able to get my clutch alignment tool in here. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg. Do I put the clutch alignment disc in first? Do I put the tool in? Do I remove this and then try to get this to wiggle in and get it fit? So what I determined was, I'm going to unscrew this, undo this, and then I'm going to try putting the clutch alignment tool in there, and hopefully there's not too much pressure that will still allow me to get in here and center whatever little bit of misalignment exists here. But let's give this a shot and see what happens. It's not the end of the world. We'll figure it out one way or another. So there you go. Takes it out, and the rest of it comes out. Now let's see if I can put this in. And I don't think, it doesn't look like it's working, right? Clutch disc is a little too low. So I think I might need to somehow try to pry the clutch disc up and get it in, I guess. I don't know how else to do it, but it's definitely not aligned. Which means that if I tried to put the transmission on right now, I would never get it to fit because the clutch disc is not centered in here, so the splines will never match up. So let me see what I can do here to get this thing lined up. Here, let me show you. You can see that it's not centered, right? Let's see. This part's too low, and this part has too much space. Too low, too much space, which means that this pin is not being centered. So I gotta fix that. All right, I think I figured it out, kind of, but not really, right? So all that I did was I removed the pressure plate, but before doing that, I made sure that I took a good picture of the location and tension of these three springs to make sure that when I do remove it, that it's not creating a situation where it's now not at the same specified tension on the clutch disc. And then as I removed it, I put the tool back in there, lined everything up, and then I slowly and torqued all the bolts back up. It reinstalled the system, and now I got the clutch disc in, and I can put the transmission on. So remember, all of these bolts were retorqued. I put Loctite on them again to make sure that that they remain torqued and that they don't move. And then I got this back in there, and the springs are exactly where they were before. So I think that I'm good there. So now I'm ready to take the engine and made it to the transmission. A couple notes there. I had already pre-prepared the bolts that are necessary, so I made sure the lengths are correct and that the sizes are correct to go into the actual block of the engine. I installed my release fork and my new throwout bearing. And just a quick point on the throwout bearing. As you can see, there's two different ways to install it. Like I said earlier, you have your higher side being pushed against the release fork, and then you have your lower side there. It's actually a smaller thickness. If you rotated this 90 degrees and you had the lower part mounted to the release fork, what you'd have is you have a clutch pedal feel that releases right off the floor. If that's your taste, if that's what you'd like, that's great. Personally, on the N54 E36 swap that I had it that way, and it just didn't quite engage or disengage the clutch, so you had misshifts and things like that. I didn't like it at all, and I don't think it's the way it should be. I actually think that it should be the way it is now, with the higher part mounted up against the release fork. And what you're going to have is you're going to have your friction point be, as you're releasing the pedal, pretty far high up, and that gives it more of a factory feel. So without further ado, let's install the transmission onto the engine and tighten up all the bolts and move on to the next thing in the swap. This here be the cradle that the DME actually installs into, right? This is from the E92, and it's obviously got a lot of additional frills here that needs to be cut off, but the idea is that it sits inside the cubby, just like that. I'm going to end up making this in such a way that it allows the harness from the engine to go right into the DME in this compartment. So now we have to create this compartment here. We have to make sure that we have allocated room here for power distribution and relays. Make sure that the hood hinges and shocks have access to open and close, that the DME has room. We're obviously going to be sealing up this hole. We'll be removing some of the sound deadening material, and we're going to make this waterproof. So what we need to do is first trim this, figure out where the DME is going to live, mount our location for the DME, and then start making our enclosure. All right, now that this is done, we got to concentrate on making the actual battery box. Now remember, this is where the DME actually installs. I'm not sure if I want to install it like this, or like that, or have it face up a little bit, but I know that it needs to be as close to the engine harness because the engine harness connectors to the DME are not long enough to snake through inside of here and be inside the cabin. So I need to make sure that this thing is close enough where the DME will end up reaching the connectors, but also make sure that it's waterproof. So I don't know if I want to make a full enclosure yet. I think I want to connect it right up to this ledge and then bring it over and then make a box right here and then connect it here and just make like a separate box with a couple of holes, access holes here for the electronics to go through. So we'll see, because I know that the battery wire needs to snake through here as well. So I need to make a hole here for the battery wire to sneak through so that I can have power distribution here as well for the power, for the relays, for the fuel pump and for everything else. So let's see what we can do. And I'm gonna probably have to cut a little bit of this out, and then I'm gonna start welding the wall up. Okay, so I've made a couple of adjustments and changes here. I decided to go with a different top cap. This is what it looks like, just over that. I've started tapping holes around the perimeter of the top that'll end up getting sealed to each of the sides. I haven't finished the sides yet. I did one of the sides here, and this guy is going to end up getting tapped on the underside so that these holes end up screwing to the top of that. What I really think I should do here when I install this, or as I'm building this, is I'm going to leave this top. This is basically going to define the entire set of walls that I need to make here. And as I set that on top, it'll end up defining where these go. So as I build these walls, I need to tack them in place and then keep on building so that all of the lips meet up with the holes that I have here, and then I'm going to end up drilling rivet nuts on that. So this is going to essentially be like a little bit of a perimeter of a table that is going to have a seal on it, like a foam seal, and then the cap is just going to go on top of that. All those are going to be drilled, and it's going to prevent any type of moisture ingress. Obviously, this is all going to be seam sealed and all that stuff to make it, you know, nice and waterproof. But that's really the plan here. So I want to now tack this wall in place. And then I have to start fabricating the other wall here that goes around, that basically curves around the shock tower. So working on that now. All right, so now this piece is assembled. Match it all up. Match up those holes. Get a light on it. Match up the holes on the side. And it looks like it's going to end up fitting quite nicely. It's going to kind of fit right on that shelf there. So there's going to be more rivet nuts, so we're going to end up drilling here, 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 and all throughout here. Now we just need to make our final piece. That goes across, and we can fill in the floor appropriately as well. And then we're just about done with this. Okay, all the pieces are now in. As you can see, I decided to weld this puppy up and smooth it over so you can see what it will look like with the top on. It'll be a nice, even seal from the top, and that'll be done here as well. I haven't done this side yet, but that's next. And then over here, it'll seal up as well. All these rivet nuts will end up getting drilled. If you can see, top side is going to fit quite nicely. It's going to be pretty square, pretty nice. I mean, there's a lot of metal work that's still left here and a lot of, paint removal, but really all the wires are going to sneak right inside of here. And I want to show you that too. I want to show you, well, I don't know, where's the DME?
Here's the DME. This is actually not the DME I'm going to use, but it is a DME. Actually, it's this way. And this is basically how it'll sit. So I got to move the DME back a little bit, and then I have to, I think I'm going to end up making a hole here. We'll probably end up doing that in part 2 and getting the DME finalized in part 2. But for now, guys, that's it for me. My name is Frank Macaluso. I hope you enjoyed this episode of part 1 of engine bay restoration. In the next episode, we're going to finish the electronics bay. We're going to start welding up our subframe and our sway bar mount locations, and we're going to end up continuing to shave the bay. It will not be a fully shaved bay, but it will be quite significantly improved from stock. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic, and I am out of here. See you later.